It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, September 25th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's looking ahead to the next couple of preseason games for some answers.
There's a lot of preseason games left.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com. You can win $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to get into what we're looking for from the game tonight in Hershey against the Washington Capitals, and looking forward from there as well. We do want to look at that game against Montreal a little more closely because there are some additional players that we didn't get to talk about on yesterday's show that are important to talk about, as well as, some questions that we have about how the game went overall. Little bit of Flyers news, no cuts as of our recording here. Camp went on yesterday without that prior to the skates. We may get some today, probably tomorrow, but we'll keep track of all that. Also, happy birthday, Gritty. A lot of good social media content from the Flyers on that yesterday.
Everybody has a birthday, even Gritty.
Even Gritty, and Gritty's initial reveal was a momentous occasion. So it was definitely something worth celebrating. All right. So digging more into that preseason game number 2 against the Montreal Canadiens from the other night. I think, Anthony Richard in a lot of ways has gotten overlooked in some ways with our, talk, and rightfully so, about Rodrigo Abels, right? Mm-hmm. Because he has stood out both in camp, in the sessions, as well as in the preseason so far. And we saw a lot of what he could do last year. Last year, Anthony Richard had an unfortunate injury that kind of curtailed his ability to kind of establish himself. But what we saw from him last year and what we saw from him last night is that trademark speed. And I wonder if there's a need for that based on the overall pace that the Flyers had in that game.
I mean, it's a fair question to ask. He had 6 points in 15 games last year.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's fair to say that as a Flyer, we don't know what he is, but he's been around a bit. And there's a reason, and sometimes teams are wrong, but there's a reason he's playing a certain amount of games with other teams and then they just kind of lose the thread. They love the speed. I don't think he does a lot else, though. And I think so it's a matter of somebody always could edge him out. Oh, they need an extra PK guy. Oh, you know what I mean? There's always – so he's not going to kill your lineup. I mean, we've seen that he's fine in the lineup, but how much is he going to bolster it? And that's, I guess, the big question.
Right. And I think last season when he was playing, there was definitely a need, right?
Yes.
And in terms of just bodies in general,
yes.
Right?
Bodies and speed for sure.
Yeah, like where the team was. And so I think there's room for the Flyers to be a little bit more forgiving with him in some of the aspects of his game. But at the same time, again, I really feel like with that speed and the fact that he is a guy that's going to take shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that they need. They need somebody who's going to come in with speed and take hard shots from middle distance. And that's kind of what he does. And so I think that if he can convert on a lot of these, like he did in the game against Montreal, he's going to start turning some heads. Can he do it? I don't know. But I think that if he can actually follow through and add that to his game over the preseason, there's more of an outside chance than there was before.
Yeah, I think he would have to score like every game, and it's unfair to say, but he just is sort of looked at as an in-between guy. And so it's like, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. One of the guys we really wanted to look at closely when we previewed that game was Helge Grans, because, he's been talked about by management, but he's been kind of a little bit behind the scenes, a little, in camp thus far. This was his first chance. Like, what was your take on his game?
Well, my blanket statement was, other than Travis Sanheim at times, the Flyers defense was just bad. But I never want to, it just was. Like, it's just in a lot of different ways. So I don't want to, hold that against him. I did see him in certain plays and felt like his skating was good. I felt like his passing was good. I'm re-looking at his numbers just because it's always good to see if the eye test sort of checks out. He was a -1, but almost everybody on defense was a minus. So at least he wasn't a -2. Played 20 minutes. So, he had 2 giveaways though. See, I saw one of them for sure. I didn't get the game early on. We could talk about that later. And no, a lot of people didn't. But so it's a little bit of a mixed bag, which their whole defense was. And I can't blame everything on him, but I don't think he did anything to help himself either.
Right. I thought it was interesting because in yesterday's camp practice in their group, he was paired with Cam York. And I think that's a better partner for him.
I do too.
And so I think that to see that in a game might be the way to show what he can actually do a little bit better. So I would hope to see that at some point in the preseason in an actual game. And that'll give me a better sense of where he is. But because I think that there's a lot that he could offer here. But he's definitely not a guy that I want sitting in the press box as a defenseman.
Well, I don't think he will. Could he? Could they scratch him every game, keep him up? I guess. But if they send him down, someone's going to take him.
Yeah. So I that's why the precariousness of his situation is of interest, and I want him to have every chance to succeed. And I do think being out there with Cam York is a good shot.
It would be better.
Hopefully we'll see that in one of the upcoming preseason games. Now, the power play obviously is something we talk about a lot. It was 1 for 4 in this game. They did have the 2-man advantage that did not convert, as we saw. And I guess the thing I hesitate to do is overly judge the power play now, because it's the preseason. It's not the right roster. It's not the right personnel. They're still tweaking things. Do we need to wait until the full units are playing before we say, yes, this is starting to work, or no, it isn't? Or is it just goals works, no goals doesn't work?
It's a little bit of that, but the formulaic way of doing it doesn't matter who's in there. It matters in there maybe for who scores or doesn't, but the process is supposed to be the same for everyone. And so far it has failed. It's 1 for 9, something like that.
Right.
On the 2-man advantage especially, they never really had the puck enough. And that is a problem. Montreal, all they did was play a 3-man box, and they played it down low, and the Flyers had no answer for it. It was very simple. It was as simple as you can get. So to me, that was a little alarming.
Yeah, and something that I think has carried through from the rookie series, even through these first 2 preseason games, is the opposing teams are able to get sticks in, and cut off passes. And I think the Flyers just have to get crisper. They have to sauce it a little better. They have to get more creative.
Nobody on the Flyers practices deception. Nobody. Forster does, but he's not playing. He's about the only one. Tyson Forster does that. Nobody else is doing it. And you have to do it on the power play to get somebody to bite once in a while, to get out of that box or the way they're playing the umbrella or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's really the missing piece for me, is that they can move it around the perimeter, fine. But when they're trying to go through the middle, the turnovers happen. So I think that's the first thing I would address and see
losing
if
faceoffs.
they lost
they lost some big faceoffs that lost possession right away.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the face-offs in general because I think, we talked about Christian Dvorak coming in and creating some stability on the face-off side of things. He was 8 for 19 in the game at 42%. Coots was the best one at 47.1%. We talked about how it was pretty weak
All
on
around,
yesterday's show, but I think, looking at Dvorak in particular, now, again, he was facing his old team. Maybe there's something to that. It's one game. I'm not going to judge him entirely, but I do think that we have to at least start paying attention to it, even if we're not making a judgment on it yet.
Yeah, listen, I felt like he should do better. I was watching him in some key spots, and in some key spots, he lost them. Plain and simple. There's no covering for that.
Yeah. So again, I think that's just a little nugget to put on the shelf to keep an eye on. I'm not worried yet entirely. I just think it's an observation
Something
that we have to
on.
then relook at,
Right.
A couple of preseason games down the pike here. We'll take another look at it. The last thing from that game is the block shots. Now, we have been told we're moving away from relying on that too heavily. They had 21 in that game. Now, it's partially because of the style that the Habs play, right? And it kind of necessitated it in some ways, but also I would like to see more active defense so the shot doesn't even happen to begin with.
Okay, that's the pipe dream, but they had 16 the first game. So that's a lot of more block shots than I thought they were going to be doing. Why do I think they're doing it? Because of the goaltending. They don't trust the goaltending. That's Rick Tocchet's way of saying, I don't trust the goaltending. He could say all the things he wants to say at the podium, but he's showing me something different when the team's actually playing. And we saw his dissatisfaction after the first period. During it, I mean, he was mad that whole first period because they were getting clobbered.
Yeah, that is definitely something. Well, goaltending is one of the things we're going to talk about as we look ahead to the next preseason game against the Washington Capitals and, of course, the other ones coming down the pike as well. We are going to get to all that coming up next.
The NFL season's finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. I've been looking at the FanDuel MVP odds, and Justin Herbert is a guy that you should look at from San Diego.
Okay.
Well, actually, Los Angeles now. I'm just not used to it. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right. Tomorrow on the channel, you're going to see a special season preview episode from the Locked On NHL channel side of things that I did. And then we will be back on Monday to catch up on the last 2 preseason games, camp cuts, all of that stuff. So looking forward to bringing all of that to you. In the meantime, that first game coming up next is the game in Hershey against the Washington Capitals. We will not see Alexander Ovechkin. No. He's still in non-contact at this point and in his last season in the NHL. Maybe.
He's got a new clothing line. I can tell you that. So who knows? He might want to sell it.
Stay over here and sell it. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But looking forward to the atmosphere in Hershey. That's for sure. It's always a good time there, except for when the Phantoms go there and it gets a little brutal sometimes. But the fan atmosphere.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Now, I think, I guess goaltending is definitely one of the big questions going into this. Last time around, I said I wanted to see Vladar and Bjarnason. We saw Ersson and Kolosov, the other two. So maybe we'll see Vladar and Bjarnason this time around.
Nope. I think we're going to see Ersson right back in there, and then it's either Vladar or Bjarnason. Probably Vladar because he hasn't gotten in yet. So I think
Right.
Ersson's going to be right back in there because I think that's what you have to do.
Right. That was going to be my next question, because I think it is a situation where he had a rough first period, and you almost have to put him in right away and have him play 2 periods regardless of how he does,
No
right?
matter
To
the
see how he
outcome.
adjusts.
Correct. Yeah, you can't worry about the outcome. You just leave him in. Because look, does he guarantee have the job? No. The team favors him for sure, and they talk him up, and he has the number one moniker, but it's shaky. He's on shaky ground with that. Kolosov, if he plays like 5 good games, who knows? I can't tell you what's going to happen, but most likely Ersson's still up with Vladar to start the season, but it doesn't mean something won't change. I don't think Vladar has this unlimited leash as the number one goalie.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It is really interesting because it is important to get Vladar in there. Absolutely.
Yes.
But I do see like the wisdom of putting Ersson back in there for, for at least 2 periods, like I said, and maybe both of them will get in this time around. I think the other thing I want to see them do is pick up the pace a little. Now, it'll depend on who's in the game, right? We just happened to, I think, in that second game, see some of the slower guys, but you could definitely tell the difference in terms of the pace of the Islanders game versus the Montreal game.
You could. I mean, but I'll say this. Like, Nick Delorier was one of their best guys with actual puck possession. Say what you will, but once the puck's in his end, he does hold on to it.
He does. That is true.
And so, that was something. I mean, they didn't have very good puck possession that game for a lot of it. And he actually did.
Yeah, I just think that as we're getting further in the preseason, and I know there's 7 of these games, right? And so this will be number 3 of 7. Right, and I think kind of by game 4, we should be at regular season pace. Whether or not it's your final roster, you really do need to pick up the speed and pick up the precision. You can't kind of just skate through it, right?
Well, I mean, look, we're talking about preseason, and teams are going at like 75%. They just do, especially the big stars that know there's a big season ahead. All that said, it's hard to tell what the actual pace is going to be because it's always different. It's always different when the season starts and then the playoffs start and then it's different again. That's just the way this league is. So, but do they have to play at a better pace? Yeah, because Montreal was skating circles around them for a while.
Yeah. Now, my other question is, do they have to put together at least a version of a top 6 at some point in this game tonight or the next preseason game? Because there's been a lot of mix and match, and we've seen an ostensible top 6 in practice, but like at one point, do we really need to see them in a game situation?
At the home game for the home crowd, their first game, they're the paying customers for them. That's when they need to see it. And so that's when I think they're trying to do is figure that out. And I think the home fans are the ones that get that. And I think that's the right way to do it. And so so that'll be Saturday's game against the Bruins. Right. That's what I see. Yeah, I definitely see that. I think it's important, though, at kind of midway through the preseason to do a gut check on who you think your top 6 is going to be, because then you can lay out the rest of the camp battles that have to take place to fill out the rest of the roster. But solidifying that top 6 is super important. It's a different year, right? It's a new coach, so they have to play more games with these guys than they normally would. Together. Yeah, exactly. Together, yeah. Exactly. And get the system down as a unit, right? So that is what's important from my end of things is, again, because it's a new system, you do need that extra time. You do. That's a really good point. And I think the other thing that I want to see from this game, well, I do and I don't, right? Because we've talked a lot about the power play, but not as much about the penalty kill. And, there was only one PK situation against Montreal. And they killed it, and they did a good job. So I think, what are those PK units going to turn out to be? And,
who's going to get the lion's share of that work? Are we going to see Owen Tippett on the PK a lot again? What are they going to do with Travis Konechny? Like, are they going to have other PKers, and is Travis Konechny going to get off the hook so that he can focus his time offensively, on that top line? I think those are important questions.
It's a reasonable thought, especially since now they have Christian Dvorak. If he does a good job on penalty kill, he could relieve Konechny of his duties on that. So, I think that's totally reasonable and might happen.
Yeah. So I think, those are kind of the big things that I'm asking right now in kind of this middle portion of the preseason. I think the camp battles will work themselves out. I think the guys that step up will be the guys that step up, whether that's Alex Bump, we'll see how Jett Luchanko does. We'll see how all these guys do. Is Abel's going to get a roster spot here? I think those things will work themselves out in the right way, because again, 7 games, you can answer that question in 7 games.
Oh no, definitely. It's they have a lot of runway this year. So, while they're playing some games, like practicing same day and going to games, teams are all doing that. So the Flyers can't use that as an excuse, because other teams are doing it too. And the biggest thing, they're not scoring enough goals. They're just not.
Right. All right. Well, y'all have some questions too about Jett Luchanko, about the preseason, some Bernie Perron thoughts. We're going to get into all of that coming up next. All right, so getting into our mailbag and the comment section this week, Curious Boomer asked a question about the preseason and potentially having a split squad preseason game, much like they do for the rookie series, right? Where there's 2 games back to back, and some teams have done it on the same day, an afternoon and an evening game. And so Curious Boomer wanted to know, like, should the Flyers do something like that?
They won't. It's like an employee thing too. You have to have employees around longer, working these much longer shifts. Teams just generally don't want to do it.
Yeah, I think the rookie series works because it's 2 consecutive days, and it's the rookies. It's not the full roster, so you don't need the full staff.
No TV timeouts. It goes quicker. Yeah.
Right. So, unfortunately, I don't think that will happen. However, I do like it in concept.
I mean,
it's a fun thing.
There's a long time ago they used to have double headers in hockey in the same building, but that's a long time ago, even before I started watching.
Yeah. I wonder if I do believe they had a Phantoms Flyers doubleheader once. When the Phantoms were in Philly.
Yeah, once. I remember that.
Yeah. On Jett Luchanko, we got a couple. We got several comments.
I'm sure we did.
And then we got an email. So Joseph DeAngelis commented, I have a few concerns from the Montreal preseason game. First off, I'm just not seeing it from Jett Luchanko. I didn't see much explosiveness in his skating. He wasn't winning puck battles or faceoffs. I know he's only 19, but I've seen other young players at least stand out in the preseason. And then we got an email from John saying, I've heard a few people say that players like Bump and Luchenko perform better at higher levels rather than staying in junior hockey. Does that make any sense? So what's your take on how Luchenko's doing so far? And is it a thrive at the higher level of competition scenario?
I mean, that does happen. Bump did play on the top line in that game. He, there was the one big scoring chance. He didn't score there, but that was really his only scoring chance. I saw him trying to go to the middle, and they were jamming the middle, just like we said that they did with the Phantoms last year, right? You saw that too. So, yeah, there's only a little of that. When you're really close, yes, that could make the difference and put you over the top. With Jett Luchanko, I did see him a couple times get plastered, but still made the play, really, made a good pass like around the end to get the puck out. He was able to do that a few times. Was he any kind of offensive threat? No, he wasn't. We'll see. I mean, I don't know what this injury entails, but he's playing. So you can't, as a fan, I get it. It's not your job to guess what might be wrong with him. If he's playing, then you have to assume he's healthy. So yeah, did he play well enough? No, he didn't.
Right. And I think that's one of the things I'm grateful for having a longer preseason. There's not many, don't get me wrong, but this is one of the things, because I think guys like Luchenko and Bump secondarily, I would say,
Yeah.
like having more opportunities to see him perform and see what the consistency looks like. Like, is this a one-off, or does he learn from previous games, and does he tweak what he's doing? And I think that's just as important as, individual game stats. So that's the part of it that I kind of want to like just take a step back on with Jett Luchanko. I
Right.
think
That's fair.
I think that he does still have a potential to be a 2 seed to me.
Oh yeah.
It's just going to take some time. And, like you said, he is 19. So let's,
Right. He has the defensive part of the game down.
Yep, he does.
And so that part's good. That's usually the harder part. The part that's going to have to show is the offense. He did have, some assists last year in the Phantoms playoffs, and they were good. Yeah, his offense does need to kick in at some point. That's all.
Right. And I've seen that happen, to John's point before as well, where guys just play better at the NHL level than they do at the AHL level, let's say. And they just manage to step up the level of their play and kind of go at that pace. When they increase the pace of their game because they have to, it just works and clicks better, and it's harder for them to play at a slower pace sometimes. And I've seen that. I don't know if that's the case with Luchenko though, in particular.
I don't think so. I don't think it is. And I think with Bump, he has to be closer for that to really take effect, because I think there is something to it, but I think you have to be really close for that to happen.
A lot of really lovely Bernie Parent comments this week. Kevin said Bernie Parent was the only great goalie the Flyers ever had in their 58 years. Bernie won their only
rough, but I get
Stanley Cups. Yeah, I mean, championships are hard to deny.
No, I know, but that doesn't mean somebody else wasn't really good.
Yeah, Dean commented, Bernie Parent was one incredible goalie and the leader with Bobby Clark of the Broad Street Bullies. I know he learned so much from being a teammate of Jacques Plante. And after coming back to the NHL from the WHA, he dominated for a number of years, a big influence on a lot of goalies, including myself, meaning Dean. And that's really cool. Like to hear that.
We all know the name Jacques Plante. I didn't get to see him play either, folks, but when I was writing one of my Ranger books, I did dig into him a little because he was a Ranger, and found that even like as an older player, like he played pretty well. He was a legend, but there was always this thing. He had a towel on his head, and I had to figure out why. And it just turns out he was cold. Apparently he always, I had to talk to some older players, and apparently Jacques Plante used to complain that he was cold. So he would keep this towel on his head when he wasn't playing or when practice was over. Just one of those things, but I saw a bunch of pictures like that, so I was wondering.
Oh, always bizarre when somebody who gets cold all the time chooses a winter sport. But I can relate to that in some ways. And then Amanda sent us a really cool email about the story I told about seeing Bernie Parent on the big Jumbotron as my plane was landing, coming into the Philly airport. And she actually sent the picture she took of Bernie on the big screen that day. It's a really cool picture. So thanks for that, Amanda. It was, I just very distinctly remember that. And pretty much the picture she sent was what I saw from the airplane. Cool. So, that alumni game was really cool.
It was one of the best, if not the best I've ever seen. So
and I had actually been flying in to go to the Winter Classic the next day. So I got to attend the next day, but unfortunately I was in transit during that alumni game.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the level of play that was the best. It was the level of interest from the fans. It was insane.
Tony sent us a message saying, I'm hopeful Bobby Brink and Noah Cates have exceptional seasons. Those are probably my two favorites currently, other than TK and Tippett.
Okay, so I think Noah Cates can do a little better than last year, but not much. And if he does that every year, I think you'll be okay with him. Bobby Brink, I'm at the point now. I told you, I ranked him pretty high. I still like what I see a lot of the time, but he's leaving me wanting more. And he has been doing that for like the last season and change. And so somehow he's got to do more. And if he doesn't, then I think the Flyers are going to start thinking about what is Bobby Brink for them. So I think that's a fair point to make.
I think so. I think the opportunity is there. That's the thing. It's like, it's really up to him at this point. He's going to get the ice time to prove himself, like no question. So I think, with Cates, it's figuring out where does he fit into the Flyers' future, because I think, he was, punching above his weight a little bit to start off with. Then he figured it out and was a huge contributor the last couple of seasons. It's, do we still need him in that role, or are other guys going to supplant that? And can Kate settle into like a 3C kind of role with the Flyers? And is that the appropriate spot for him? I don't think it's a question of ability or skill or execution. It's a, where's the place for him 2-3 years down the pike with the Flyers?
He just might be that guy like Matthias Janmark. He's kind of like that guy. Sometimes teams have this guy that just does a little bit of everything. And he might just be that guy. And every team needs that guy. Yeah.
And I listen, I am a Noah Cates fan. I would like to see him with this team for the foreseeable future.
USHL. I love his attitude and everything about it. He's a great locker room guy, and he's fiery.
Yeah. I love his game. So I think, I hope that the Flyers do keep a place for him that's best suited for him, over the next few
a lot
years.
Of times there's injuries. You need a center. He could be a center that day. You need a right wing, left wing. He could do that too.
Yep, absolutely. And we did also, as Russ alluded to earlier in the show, we got a whole bunch of comments about the geo blocking for the live stream for the first preseason game and the second one to some extent. Now, you could get around it if you had an ESPN subscription. But that being said, I think, as we know, they're going to reduce the number of preseason games next season, and they're increasing the number of regular season games. So the point is kind of moot to some degree. However, I do think even in a shortened preseason, if there's 4 or 5 preseason games, if there's fewer of them, they have to be broadcast. They just have to.
They do. Like, it should be a standard, honestly.
Yeah, I think that it's, especially, season ticket holders who they're all these road games.
Right.
They should be able to watch every single preseason game.
They should.
Yeah. So your outrage is well-founded, and we agree, both of us had issues and had to get around it somehow. So I get it. But it should be good from here on out as far as the broadcast goes.
Yeah. But we did have one more. I noticed one more on the list there from Amanda. She sent in and she said a few things, but also said that the Bobby was the best. She agreed with that.
Yes, I did not mention that part of Amanda's email.
That's right.
The Capriati sandwich that we talked about on the Monday show.
You mentioned that because I heard the other stuff, but I didn't hear that.
Yeah. All right. Well, you had to make that point, I suppose. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We will be back Monday with a full episode recapping the last couple of preseason games and see where the team is after probably some cuts. And we'll have another episode in the feed for you tomorrow with our season preview from the Locked On NHL channel. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you want your mailbag question answered on the show, let us know via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out Locked On NHL. There is no off-season. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.